Hello and welcome to Witchy Wednesday with Seaside Shadows. I am your hostess and witch today, Courtney, and I'm very excited to be here making another elixir with you today. And I'm particularly excited about the use of mugwort, which is one of the most magical herbs that there is. And we've worked with lavender and rosemary before, which have a lot of potency, but mugwort was one that was actually one of the top for herbal healing and was proven to do so much that you could ingest it and it still be used in modern medicine today. Some have even stated that Big Pharma was so scared by how effective mugwort could be with the curing of certain things that they actually advocated that it did not work so that they could promote different forms of medication in lieu of mugwort, which also goes by the name wormwood and Artemisia. Now, we're going to be making a Moontime Elixir with this lovely herb today, but I want to talk to you a bit about where the story of this herb comes from. We know they always come from these ancient backgrounds and kind of pagan backgrounds. Sorry, our neighbors like to wave, and also people like to wonder what I'm doing outside in a cape. So that may happen from time to time during this video. But it comes from a lot of different backgrounds, but most notably, this particular root and herb got its name from the goddess Artemis. And she's the goddess of several things, and she's one that females look to a lot, and you may know her as the twin of Apollo in Greek folklore and the daughter of Zeus. Now, she is most known as a goddess of nature, specifically animals, but she's also a goddess of the hunt. So she's about making sure that you get what you need, but also protecting the creatures outside when that is required, specifically small creatures, baby creatures, things like that. When you see depictions of Artemis, it is how she was depicted and seen in Greek mythology as sort of this goddess wood nymph who was dancing around the woods surrounded by fairies, which we'll liken you back to last week, and sort of bringing magic everywhere she went. This sort of mystical being who's incredibly powerful and protective, but also bringing that divine femininity, which goes directly into why the Artemisia and the wormwood utilize her as a namesake. Now, when we look toward wormwood, mugwort, which grows in a variety of climates and usually comes in the spring, what's funny is that it can be almost too potent. And if you've ever had the drink absinthe, it's the leading ingredient in what makes absinthe, which makes you hallucinate if you have too much. And in fact, if you actually digest just 100% wormwood oil, who knows what could happen to you? Visions, yes, but some awful things could happen as well. So what we're making today is a safe mixture of a variety of things so that it can be ingested medically and also for dreams. Now, one of the things that wormwood is used for most in magic is astral projection, putting yourself somewhere else. Kind of a cool idea. But it's also said to help you do this most in dream time. Now, it will help your memories as well as your dreams and helping your spirit travel. So mugwort's incredibly magical. But what about all those medicinal uses that were so true that beyond being used in absinthe, beyond being used to astral project, beyond honoring the goddess Artemis, what are those uses that were kind of swept under the rug over the centuries? Well, if you ever suffer indigestion, bloating, any sort of stomach issues where you just have trouble, especially after a hearty meal, or that's something that you regularly get stomach pains, mugwort is really helpful for that. And what I was incredibly thrilled to learn about mugwort and start utilizing it for is that it's incredibly helpful for the female body and the regulation of cycles. And women who suffer from polycystic ovarian syndrome and endometriosis have reported that this not only helps their cycles become more regular, which helps them to feel better and healthy, it's also known to relieve cramps, menstrual cramps. And if you are ever suffering mood swings because of the time of the month or your menstrual cycle. Mugwort helps to temper your mood and keep you stable. Now, it is said that women actually dream so vividly during their monthly cycles that sometimes it can cause a fright in the body, which leads to a lot of the cramping. And the Artemisia allows you to experience those dreams in a fluid way. So it really helps in so many different ventures. And there's a lovely quote about how helpful it is for women from a woman named Ms. Tally. And it says, has Artemisia come to help us unlock the deep dreams that day-to-day living has swept seemingly out of reach? Has she come to guard us and protect us while we realign ourselves with the strength of feminine energy? Has she come with her liver cleansing and digestive tonic to help ease the pain of those sisters who cannot honor their monthly cycle by calling time out? I think she has. So she's incredibly useful for women. And for me, who does suffer from a lot of the diseases mentioned that this helps with, I'm incredibly grateful that there's an herb that's natural that can perhaps ease those symptoms. Now, there's also a lovely poem, and it is said, oddly, that wormwood gained its magic, at least according to Christian folklore, which may be part of the reason that it's swept out of our society. Wormwood first grew where the serpent snaked out of the Garden of Eden. It grew only in the path of which he left. Oh, magic indeed. Tempting, but also useful. So perhaps that adds a little bit of darkness to our wormwood, but it doesn't scare me away. And here is a poem that actually comes based on that Christian tradition. While wormwood hath seed, get a handful of twain, to save against March, to make flee, to refrain. Where chamber is sweeped and wormwood is strown, what savour is better, if physics be true? For places infected than wormwood and rue. It is a comfort for heart and the brain, and therefore to have it is not in vain. So they don't like where it came from, but they cannot deny the usefulness of it, which adds a little bit of fun to the wormwood as well. Today, what we are making in our Moontime Elixir is a long process. So we are going to just get started today, and then in 6 weeks' time, we will finish part 2 of the process, and then it will be available for sale in our Seaside Shadows store. And we'll go over some of our previous things from before, but let's get started and how we're going to make this Moontime Elixir that's going to give us good dreams, prophetic dreams, help us see the future, help us astral project, and if you are a woman, help you with your monthly cycle's regularity, less pain, and to just have an overall better experience in that time for you, which is something I am looking forward to as well, and it is going to be completely healthy for you to ingest. So the first thing we want to do is to take a small jar. Now I have a relatively large jar. You can take a smaller jar. And what we're going to do is place a variety of ways of and parts of the mugwort plant into the jar. The first thing we're going to do is place a mixture of leaves and flower tops, as well as some parts of the root. Now we want to get this a little bit less huge leaves. This is completely measured out. You want at least 1/3 of a cup of these leaves, and you want them kind of really kind of ground up as much as possible. So we're going to, if you have a mortar and pestle, that's great for helping, but sometimes it can also be a little bit tough. So you're going to want to break it. Mugwort's very strong. You have a couple ways that you can do this. I'm using fresh mugwort, but dried works as well. So if you want to hang it up in your house, pick it from your plant and hang it up in your house and let it sort of dry out a bit, that will help you in this process. Fresh or dry does not impact the magic. Dry you'll need a little bit more of because it will shrink when it is dry. But you can also just be like me if you're using fresh and just sort of break it up a bit. But you want at least 1/3 of the cup, and we're going to put some extra in there because there's also mugwort seeds that come in with this as well. So we have this all broken up. We're going to put it in here. We're going to move that in here as well. I lost a little bit in the grinding, breaking process. We want to make sure we don't lose our mugwort magic. Now, the next thing you're going to want to put in here are mugwort seeds. If you have a mugwort plant at home, taking any part of the plant, specifically from the root, is going to give you some mugwort seeds. We do have some parts of the root that we are going to be putting in, but first things first, I want to make sure that we have some just authentic mugwort seeds. So I had some come in from the Sacred Plant Company, and we're just going to shake those lovely little seeds right on in here and put them in. And you can grow mugwort at home and gather the seeds from the plant. You don't have to order them. I just like to ensure that this will be the most effective tincture possible. Now, the next thing we want to do is some chopped roots. The roots really hold a lot of the magic. And what you need to know is that you're going to, in total, need almost half a cup of roots. But if you don't have that much, that's okay. But try to get as much as possible. We're going to put half in this jar today. Just half. And we're going to save the half for part 2 in 6 weeks from now when we finish making this together. So we have some root chopped up as well as stalks. We're going to really want that in there, and that's about half. So we have in there our mugwort leaves and muddled flower tops. We used fresh, but you can use dry. We also have in there our mugwort roots, and we also have our mugwort seeds. So that's all varieties and parts of the plant at all stages of growth for the best effectiveness. So the next thing we're going to do, and this is the last thing we're going to do today, is we're going to, let me just make sure that I have this all set. We're going to put a high-proof alcohol on this. This will help make it digestible, but it also helps bring out the potency of this tincture. We have this lovely Crystal Skull vodka that we're using that's pretty high proof. Again, shout out to my friend Dana for providing us with that as a tasty and also useful magical gift. And so we're going to pour that in there, but see, that's not quite enough that we set aside. We didn't anticipate how big the fresh mugwort would get. So we want to also add a little bit more. You want to completely cover your leaves so that they're submerged. So we're going to, and some of you are like, Courtney, that's good vodka. I'm like, I know, but this will be a really great tincture. All right, so they're completely almost covered, and I still have vodka to spare for my enjoyment, have no fear. So they're completely covered, and that's what we're going to want to do next is seal this. And you may remember we did this with our lavender water, and we sealed it for about 2 weeks. We're going to seal this and put it in a cool, dark place, and we're going to store it there for about 6 weeks. Every week or so we give it a little shake. Then in 6 weeks, we're going to come back here. We're going to mix in the rest of the roots. We're going to mix in 2 cups of water, full moon water mixed in with that for some extra added magic and purity. And we're going to mix in some honey as well that will add to the sweetness of the tincture, but also is a very natural part of the creation of it. If we don't come back in 6 weeks, what your instruction for on video, we will try to, but if for any reason we're out giving tours because we'll be reopened, what you need to know is this: after the 6 weeks, what you're going to do is strain off excess plant material. It's really going to get in there over the 6 weeks. And then you're going to boil 2 cups of water. I suggest mixing it with full moon water for that extra magic. That's what we'll be doing. And add the remaining roots and simmer that in that water for a half an hour. And then you're going to mix the tincture that you have had in a cool, dark space for 6 weeks with the root liquid. And then you're going to add honey. You're going to want about 1/4 cup of honey. We have that ready for us here, so we'll be ready to go at that time. And then the result should be that you can take it. You're going to mix it with a little bit of water when you take it, if that helps your taste. You can put it in your tea, and then you should have a lovely night's sleep, and you should start to feel some healthy effects in your body. Yes, it's a bit of a process, but in 6 weeks, you'll be able to finish a really magical tincture. I hope that you enjoyed this Witchy Wednesday, where we created the beginning of the Artemisia Moontime Elixir to help women at their monthly cycle, but to also help anybody with digestive issues or stomach issues, and to also help with prophetic dreams, memory, and even, if you're willing, some astral projection. But always be safe when taking any form of mugwort or wormwood, and make sure that it is taken correctly. Now, we will have this available for sale when we finish and bottle it up, and we will continue to be making some for our Seaside Shadows Magic store. At the beginning of July, you should see a revamped SeasideShadows.com that will have our store easily accessible. You can still buy things in the next few weeks by messaging us at Seaside Shadows. What we have available for sale is our Cauldron Brew, which you can use for rituals. And we know the summer solstice is coming soon, so perhaps you would like a little Cauldron Brew to put into your fire and make sure that you get some extra magic coming for the summer solstice. We also have our Rosemary Water. You may remember that we made that for a variety of different things that helps with aches and pains, but you can also spray on your pillow. And then we also have the Isis Healing Brew, which you can actually put in your bath water or rub onto your skin, that prevents all sorts of things from colds to flus and make sure your sinuses and allergies are clear. And then we also have the lavender water, which there's nothing lavender water doesn't do. It smells nice, it calms you down, it helps if you have anxiety, but it's also incredibly useful for inflammation. And we also have our black salt from our very first Witchy Wednesday. We're still making black salt with a mix of actual sea salt, ash, and different things that keep this being black. Black specifically breaks hexes, and that's what we want it to do: break curses, break negative energy. We are coming into a season where a lot of planets are in retrograde. A lot of things will appear to be going backwards. A lot of chaos will appear to be continuing to ensue. You want to break the negative so you can embrace the positive that's coming, and black salt is a great reminder to do that. So we have our lavender water, rosemary water, Isis Healing Brew, black salt, Cauldron Brew, all available, all made here organically from our garden and utilizing full moon water. And today we started Artemisia Moontime Elixir, which will be available in about 6 weeks. Thank you so much for tuning in. Stay spooky, and we will see you this weekend.